Hello, you outstanding child of God. Welcome to Bible Bedtime. This is Season 5, Episode 266. I am your host, Dana, and in this podcast, I read a full chapter of the Bible in a way I hope will help you fall asleep in heavenly peace. In this 5th season, we are reading through the 5th books of the Old and New Testaments. And we've already read through Deuteronomy, and now we are reading through the book of Acts. After I read a chapter from the 5th book of Acts, I will then read another full chapter from the book of Psalms. We finish each episode with the habit of saying the Lord's Prayer, and then I close with a dedication prayer from my heart and from Psalm 20:14. I had another podcast that I listened to I wanted to share with you, and this isn't any kind of a sponsored message or anything like that, but I do have a podcast I like to listen to, and it is called the Huberman Lab. If you're on Spotify or some other podcast provider, see if you can look that up. It is spelled Huberman Lab, L-A-B. And the episode that I am listening to is about the biology of sleep. And as you can imagine, I have really enjoyed listening to it. There is all kinds of information about the different stages of sleep, about the benefits of sleep and the different studies that are done on sleep and sleeping. And they also give very concrete ways of improving your sleep habits. And it's a long podcast. It's almost 3 hours long. So it goes on for quite a while. But I was in the car driving for work, and I was able to listen to it, almost all of it. I have a little bit left, but I enjoyed it tremendously, and I think you would appreciate it. One of the things, oh gosh, there were so many things. How do I pick just something out of a 3-hour podcast to focus on? I'd say there are 2 things in particular that I think would be interesting to share. The first being that the scientists, both of them that were on this podcast, talked about if you are lying in bed, unable to sleep, whether you have just tried to go to bed and you can't fall asleep, or if you wake up in the night and you can't fall asleep, both of these things are very normal. But if it's been more than 30 minutes and you feel like you haven't been able to sleep, go back to sleep or fall asleep, to just go ahead and get up and do something else just for a few minutes, and then try to go back to bed. And they talked about the danger of your place of rest becoming a place of frustration, and I found that fascinating. And I know that I myself have been there, where I crawl into bed with a mindset of a battle. I'm going to win this battle to fall asleep. And I guess I didn't need them to confirm that is not a very productive way, a good strategy of falling asleep. So I hope that helps you. The second thing they talked about that I found fascinating were the 4 elements of good sleep. And these had significant health benefits, and they talk in depth about these. And it was the quality of sleep, the quantity of sleep, the regularity of sleep, and that means having a regular sleep schedule, going to bed and waking up at approximately the same time every day. And the fourth one was the timing of sleep, and whether or not the timing of that sleep aligned with your natural inborn way of sleeping. And I think they had 5 categories. It was people who are extreme early to bed, early to risers. So these would be people who wake up at, 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. Then there are early risers who wake up maybe at 5 or 6 in the morning. And then you have the neutral, which would be, 6, 7 o'clock in the morning. And then late, or late to bed, late to rise, which would be 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning. And then the extreme late, which would be people who don't wake up until 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning and maybe stay up until well after midnight. And the different types, those 5 different types of people, I found fascinating that it is inborn. You were born as a morning person or as an extreme early riser. It's something that's part of your DNA. And when something is part of your DNA, we know as believers that God created you that way, and that God has a reason for creating you that way. Now, if you're a child or a teenager, or you're going through an illness or some sort of extreme training, then these categories would not necessarily apply to you. But they did have a quiz that you could take to find out which one of these 5 timing elements appealed to you or were part of your DNA. And I will put the links to all of that in my show notes so you can go to that. I hope you find that fascinating. If you didn't, then hopefully you found it boring and you're sound asleep already. But on that note, let's go ahead and get ready to go to sleep, shall we? Let's make sure that we have good quality, quantity, regularity, and timing so that you can wake up refreshed and ready to do everything that God has planned for you tomorrow. Make sure to get the room just right. And then snuggle into your favorite sleeping position. Get the covers situated the way you like them. And then nestle your head into your pillow. And feel the weight of gravity pulling on your body. Almost like the earth is hugging you. And reflect for a moment on the miracle that is everything in the universe that has conspired to help you fall asleep. Gravity is perfect for holding you without any effort. The sun has dimmed to help you sleep well. Or your built environment, your home, your windows, your window coverings are such that you can create that darkness to help you sleep. Your body is built to continue breathing, and your heart continues to pump, and your brain continues to do what it needs to do. Even while you are asleep, you don't have to work at it. All you have to do is drift into sleep. Now, Now, if you can, join me in taking 3 deep breaths. 1, 2, and 3. Very good. Acts chapter 18. After this, Paul left Athens and went to Corinth. There he met a Jew named Aquila, a native of Pontus, who had recently come from Italy with his wife Priscilla, because Claudius had ordered all the Jews to leave Rome. Paul went to see them, and because he was a tent maker as they were, he stayed and worked with them every Sabbath. He reasoned in the synagogue, trying to persuade Jews and Greeks. When Silas and Timothy came from Macedonia, Paul devoted himself exclusively to preaching, testifying to the Jews that Jesus was the Christ. But when the Jews opposed Paul and became abusive, he shook out his clothes in protest and said to them, "Your blood be on your own heads. I am clear of my responsibility. From now on, I will go to the Gentiles." Then Paul left the synagogue and went next door. Titus Justus, a worshiper of God, Crispus, the synagogue ruler, and his entire household believed in the Lord. And many of the Corinthians who heard him believed and were baptized. One night, the Lord spoke to Paul in a vision. "Do not be afraid. Keep on speaking. Do not be silent, for I am with you, and no one is going to attack and harm you, because I have many people in this city." So Paul stayed for 1.5 years, teaching them the Word of God. While Gallio was the proconsul of Achaia, the Jews made a united attack on Paul and brought him into court. "This man," they charged, "is persuading the people to worship God in ways contrary to the law." Just as Paul was about to speak, Gallio said to the Jews, "If you Jews were making a complaint about some misdemeanor or serious crime, it would be reasonable for me to listen to you. But since it involves questions about words and names and your own law, settle the matter yourselves. I will not be a judge of such things." So he had them ejected from the court. Then they all turned on Sosthenes, the synagogue ruler and beat him in front of the court. But Gamaliel showed no concern whatsoever. Paul stayed on in Corinth for some time. Then he left the brothers and sailed for Syria, accompanied by Priscilla and Aquila. Before he sailed, he had his hair cut off at Cenchrea because of a vow he had taken. They arrived at Ephesus, where Paul left Priscilla and Aquila. He himself went into the synagogue and reasoned with the Jews. When they asked him to spend more time with them, he declined. But as he left, he promised, "I will come back if it is God's will." Then he set sail from Ephesus. When he landed at Caesarea, he went up and greeted the church, and then went down to Antioch. After spending some time in Antioch, Paul set out from there and traveled from place to place throughout the region of Galatia and Phrygia, strengthening all the disciples. Meanwhile, a Jew named Apollos, a native of Alexandria, came to Ephesus. He was a learned man with a thorough knowledge of the Scriptures. He had been instructed in the way of the Lord, and he spoke with great fervor and taught about Jesus accurately, though he knew only the baptism of John. He began to speak boldly in the synagogue. When Priscilla and Aquila heard him, they invited him to their home and explained to him the way of God more adequately. When Apollos wanted to go to Achaia, the brothers encouraged him and wrote to the disciples there to welcome him. On arriving, he was a great help to those who by grace had believed, for he vigorously refuted the Jews in public debate, proving from the Scriptures that Jesus was the Christ. Psalm 49. For the director of music of the sons of Korah, a psalm. Hear this, all you peoples. Listen, all who live in this world, both low and high, rich and poor alike. My mouth will speak words of wisdom. The utterance from my heart will give understanding. I will turn my ear to a proverb. With the harp, I will expound my riddle. Why should I fear when evil days come, when wicked deceivers surround me? Those who trust in their wealth and boast of their great riches. No man can redeem the life of another or give to God a ransom for him. The ransom for a life is costly. No payment is ever enough that he should live on forever. and not see decay. For all can see that wise men die, the foolish and the senseless alike perish and leave their wealth to others. Their tombs will remain their houses forever, their dwellings for endless generations, though they had named lands after themselves. But man, despite his riches, does not endure. He is like the beasts that perish. This is the fate of those who trust in themselves and of their followers who approve their sayings. Selah. Like sheep, they are destined for the grave, and death will feed on them. The upright will rule over them in the morning. Their forms will decay in the grave, far from their princely mansions. But God will redeem my life from the grave. He will surely take me to him. Selah. Do not be overawed when a man grows rich, when the splendor of his house increases, for he will take nothing with him when he dies. His splendor will not descend with him. Though while he lived, he counted himself blessed, and men praise you when you prosper. He will join the generation of his fathers who will never see the light of life. A man who has riches without understanding is like the beasts that perish. The Lord's Prayer. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come. Your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us today our daily bread. Forgive us our debts, as we also have forgiven our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from the evil one. And in closing, may the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be pleasing in your sight, O Lord, my rock and my Redeemer. Now, it is time for you to go to sleep, and sleep well. Sweet dreams, and good night.